Welcome, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the New Earth Architect Podcast. I am your host, Spencer Kiyoshi. I think I'm a host. Am I hosting you? Are you there? Am I here? 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the New Earth Architect Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Kiyoshi. Had to do the little nose itch just to make sure that you know that I'm not an AI bot or something of that nature. So I did about 20 minutes um, introducing what the podcast is about, a little bit about who I am. And now, being that this is episode one, this is the second half of that. I wanted to elaborate on a couple of different topics. I didn't really know if I wanted to bring the conversation forward about just sort of the state of the world and all the crazy things that are happening and start, you know, shining light on some of the more morose and dark things out there, or if I wanted to focus more on all the positive things, because there's a lot more positive out there than there is negative. It just sort of depends on what you're paying attention to, right? What type of diet you are subscribing to through your social media or through your daily interactions. So I was having a conversation with a good friend the other day, my walking buddy Mike, um, who's a filmmaker and a multimedia guy. He's much more than that, but just to sort of give you a little bit of background about what he does. Um, and we were, walking through the park and discussing uh, some dark shit, you know, wars and the cabal and the Vatican, corporate control, etc. Uh, the state of this country, and so far as like the vote, the election that's taking place in just the next couple of days. Today is the day before Halloween. I'm dressed up, actually, just as a side note, as the universe expressing itself in human form. Take that however you will. But yeah, that's what I'm dressed up as today. Yeah, I think that I want to just sort of bring things current to how it is that we um, take in information, right? How we take in information, how it affects us, and maybe some solutions as to what we can do to fine tune or at least curb our diet in a certain kind of way where, you know, the sort of propagated and lifted up information that is there in mass is not essentially not doing what it's meant to do, which is to put us in negative states, to cause divisiveness, to sort of sway the masses in a certain kind of way where it elicits control, right? Whether that's control of your emotions, your intellectual space, your energy, which these things are all connected. Whether it be your wallet, your purchasing power and how you spend and lend your dollars to a very opportunistic, capitalistic, consumer material based society. I know that sounds just so dark and deep and harsh, but we are going to go over some things that I feel, at least within my experience, tend to help sort of curb these things. But let's first talk about the state of what we're seeing right now. I think that we're experiencing a good amount of censorship and funneling of certain types of information through the regular news media, your social media as well. That's not hands off, whether that's people that are creating channels and profiles that are looking to shed light on some of um, the sneakier things that are happening behind the scenes in society. Those people becoming, shadow banned, censored, etc., things of that nature. So I would say that I've had, my issues with doom scrolling, as you call it, just sort of diving down it deep into rabbit holes that ultimately have no nutritional value to the soul. Um, and I notice, because I like to think that I'm quite aware, even when I'm in that state, that it is doing more harm than good. So I have to, make sure that I break away from these things, and recalibrate myself so that I'm not just doom scrolling, but ultimately, shit, doom strolling. You know what I mean? You start doom scrolling, you become a certain kind of way, like angst builds up, or sort of negative perceptions about the world around you and people, and you might, you know, then project that outwardly into the real world, you know, and that doesn't help matters at all when it comes to, um, just sort of manifesting a world that you would like to see, um, other than what it is that we're presented with now. So, um, yeah, I think that some of the simpler things that I can do is just to fucking put the phone down, take a breath and just become aware of what it is that is taking place within my body, within my mind, within my spirit. Just taking a big deep breath and becoming still. I know I can sound like a broken record at times, regarding that, but I really do feel that fundamentally, us as human beings, that is the great equalizer, when it comes to breaking away from elements of dis-ease and sort of suffering and negative perceived negative value things. So, yeah, that would be the first. And I'm not talking about distracting ourselves away from the distractions either. We can also use that time to really sort of process what it is that we're looking at too, and what we're taking in. But I think, we're able to do that differently and process differently when we bring ourselves to a different state of awareness and a different state of consciousness. So, that's something that really helps me. Insofar as different things that we could be doing to fill that time and energy and attention that we give to social media and media, and that whole landscape. I'm not gonna sound like my dad and say fucking, read a book, or something. Go outside and play. But you know what I mean? Read a book, go outside and play. Go ground yourself a little bit in nature. Dig into the things that, um, you know, that sort of are nestled into your subconscious at times, like sort of creative endeavors, uh, you know, passion projects, that thing that in the back of your mind, you're setting to the side and not doing, while you're, you know, doing this engaged, in the algorithm, if you will. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. Tell me, you tell me, what sort of brings a little bit more levity and lightness to you, and helps sort of clear the cobwebs of, um, the algorithm bots and spiders. For me, I think, another endeavor would be like something creative, painting. I'm a painter, I'm an artist, or working with my hands a bit. Even if that means, I don't know, sometimes I'll just go out in the park, take my shoes and socks off, and like pick up a stick and look at it. I know that sounds insane, but returning ourselves to nature in any way possible at this time is very important. So we can become acutely aware, of the world around us, but we don't have to let that um, live within us, right? It's really, um, believe it or not, sort of a tangible effect. We're talking about frequency, vibration, sound, imagery. Um, this type of stimulation has an impact on us, and we really do need to allow ourselves to find ways to course correct. I hope I don't sound like I'm on a soapbox preaching or anything like that. I just know personally what it feels like to look back after a couple of days and sort of look at my um, how I've spent my extra time outside of work or relationships and say, God, shit, you know, all the things that I've sort of want to really dig into, I've sort of put on the back burner and been a little bit of a zombie towards. But yeah, so I just wanted to start with that. I hope that uh, this has been a little bit useful for you. It might sound very, very simple, but um, we are complex and simple beings, and I think for the most part, I don't know, ask yourself this, like, um, ask yourself, well, do I do any of these things? When I catch myself sort of in that, low grade frequency of just, information, 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 data, 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 am I like allowing myself to, oh shit, just stop, and take a breath, and um, process what it is that I'm taking in, and with taking that big deep breath, I think that recalibration allows us to look at this stuff as not just data, but sort of examine it from our heart space, right? Um, Not just a whole bunch of withering, dying synapses just fucking misfiring and going crazy, causing this angst and sort of uh, perception of the world around us. So yeah, so that was nice and light. But so on another note, yeah, uh, today's Halloween. Um, that really doesn't mean much to me, except for the fact that I think that I'll have a hard time parking for the next couple of days because I'm right here in the heart of the city. It's a little bit different than being out on the road or in the mountain out by the beaches where I at times long to be. Um, but even that in itself, just like how I choose to perceive what it is that I'm ingesting in the media form, um, we can also do that with a number of different things, right? Our perception um, is key to, you know, um, how we manifest in our reality, how we um, interact and engage with others, and then how that responds back to us, So there was a time where, I've been on the road I just moved back into the city like, a couple months ago. And before that, I was on the road for about 2.5 years, boondocking in my truck, working on job sites, traveling to my property up near Oregon, where I'm building out the land up there, building out a cabin and, getting my cold storage going and root cellar and, just developing some land out there so I have a place to go and just sort of fish and unplug. You're more than welcome to come. Um, but I say that to say that for me, it was a struggle because I was so disillusioned by the construct and the environment of like the city, and what it represented to me, like materialism and just the scramble and sort of the rat race. And I wanted so badly to detach from that, that when I did, um, I had a very negative view of what I was leaving. So when it was time for me to return back from, just being on the road and being along the coast and in nature and off grid, um, I was finding it pretty hard to adapt, you know, and I sort of sensed that that would be the case, but not as much as what actually took place. And even with feeling that I had the foresight to say, I had this saying that I would hear often, which is that Buddha would be as happy in hell as he would be in heaven, because he creates from within. He shifts his own, perception of the world around him. So he, you know, um, cultivates and fosters joy and love, and and that is what you perceive the world to be. So even with that tidbit of wisdom, um, fuck, man, I was still just really having a hard time transitioning back. But I did, and what I noticed was that uh, we have to zoom out on ourselves a little bit and zoom out on the concept of things. Like, I have this framework built around what the city represented to me. And so that's how I saw it. I wouldn't just really look past the fact that, okay, as I walk down this street and this concrete and steel and traffic and sirens and piss smell and, just that scrambling sort of energy, um, there's still beautiful trees right there. Balboa Park is right down the street from me. If you're familiar with San Diego, you know what Balboa Park is. And so everything is about balance, right? And, balance isn't static, balance is fluid. So, it's about just sort of how you're navigating through um, those parts of your perception that either identify something as negative or positive, right? So, yeah, I found that once again, grounding, breathing, getting out in nature, the nature that is there, it's everywhere. If you just sort of become still, um, that sort of saved me a bit. It saved my mind, it saved my heart, it saved my spirit. And so here I am. The main reason that I came back to the city was to get this podcast off the ground. Sort of I had sort of come back off the road um, in February of 2024, um, and was looking to start the podcast around March, and here we are. But I actually didn't even get into a apartment, like move in back to the city proper until about 3 months ago, and it being Halloween tomorrow. So there you go. But I appreciate all the people who have shown interest in what it is that I do, I guess. And maybe what I have to say, but even more than what I do or what I have to say, I want to really open up this platform to learn also and to share and build some element of community, right? Some community so that we can um, share in our frequency, right? And raise that vibration and that frequency so that what I'm talking about on an individual level, insofar as shifting our perception and choosing to look at things a certain kind of way, we are lending that to the collective, which is, the field, other people's energies who are like um, yours, that are looking to focus on the positive. And I know that sounds sort of woo woo and, think positive over negative. Well, there's a lot to be said for that, right? This energy and frequency is real. It's actually quantifiable to a degree. This is a lot of new information that's sort of coming up where the science is catching up with the ancient spirituality, right? That says that, wait a second, we're not just, workers, or we're not just um, this cog in the machine. When you think about it, we're the only species, right, that I know of maybe you know of others that are actually, working for money and spending a lot of their time, um which is all we have is time and energy, right? um Doing the bidding for others, with the hopes that somehow that is reciprocated in a way that allows us to um live the life that we want. But this is an uneven exchange, right? This is what we're seeing. So, um to jump back to the first segment of the podcast, where I'm sort of explaining a little bit about diving into the corporate structures, the government structures, healthcare, food, education. These are the structures that we've built, right? But who gave the keys away? Who's driving the fucking bus, right? And so these are things that will be questioned on this podcast, and I really want um, you all out there to participate if you feel comfortable with that, and sharing your views and how you're feeling about your experience. Are you aware of it? What are you aware of? How does it make you feel? And what solutions do you have, or what things help you out to sort of not just cope, but to transcend the belief that this is all that there is, because this is not all that there is, right? At the fundamental root of our existence, there lies a hidden, buried, maybe intentionally, extrasensory type of power, capability, ability, that if we really dig into um, doing the things that allow us to engage ourselves differently outside of um, the external forces, then we can really activate, right? And amplify, so that we are changing um, that perceived negative thing around us. Now, I will say this, because I have a view that might sound, how do I explain it? I I can't say controversial. What the fuck? At, at this point, what isn't seemingly controversial, right? Whether it's cancel culture, whether it's political correctness, whether it's what side of politics you stand on, war, gender, all of these different things. I don't know. I'm probably quite conservative when it comes to you know my views, and I don't mean conservative views. I mean conservative in the sense that they're probably not very bombastic. um, but one of the things that I feel intuitively, and I fall very short of trying to label myself anything, or identify as anything. But for those that know me, I'm an intuitive of sorts. This is the space I operate in. So I don't really believe or disbelieve anything, but my feeling, however, is that what is happening out in the world, as chaotic and as dark and as seemingly dystopian and apocalyptic as it may seem, um, it needs to happen, right? Um, so another quick saying that you'll often hear me say, and I'll elaborate on throughout, the podcast, is that in order for the new to grow, the old way must die, right? And what does that look like, though, right? It looks like the dismantling and crumbling of everything that you felt was going to last forever. We're seeing that there's unsustainability in in the 3D world, in the construct. We've built this, and in order for there to be change, if this is what we want, if we understand that, whoa, what the fuck, the 1% is doing this, and Hollywood is doing this, and the media is doing this, and 5G, and the food you can't even eat it, the water. If this has to change, right? What does that look like, right? It's gonna look like chaos. It's going to feel like the sky is falling and that there's nowhere to go. But at the end of the day, there is, and that is inward, because the more that we go inward and engage our highest version of ourselves and really try to see what we're capable of beyond, our labels and titles, and, um, each individual who does that work, whether that's healing traumas, healing, you know, um, you know, ancestral trauma, family trauma, um, changing your view and perception of the world around you. Then if everyone's doing that, then everyone's doing their part and lending to the possibility of change. Now, I doubt that there's a lot of people that are out there that want to maintain things as they are, you know um so that takes each individual, because each individual will probably ask, well, what can we do, right? And it's more, what can I do? And that is finding the joy and love and peace within yourself, and the forgiveness within yourself, and the non-judgment, so that we can then manifest that outward, right? Because we're all reflections of each other, believe it or not. Um, and frequency begets like frequency; they attract each other, and then there's growth from that point. That's where we're at. We're at the precipice of a dynamic shift right now, and it can look very scary, and it can feel scary. But if you really go inward and fortify, I guess what some would call your spirit, right, your soul consciousness, um, then really anything is possible. That might sound a little, you know, rose colored glasses, but what lens are you looking through now, right? Why not um, aim for better, greater, less friction, you know, so that we can navigate through together. So let's do that. So that's what this podcast is about. Now, I apologize. I was supposed to have a guest today for the first episode, but all you get is me, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. Um, but yeah, he wasn't able to make it. But I can talk. I talk quite a bit. I think that what I'll do at some point is probably end up bringing this to like a live stream or something like that, to where I can engage you in real time and have some feedback as I go along. But please feel free to um, comment, share. I know, yep, I'm that guy. Like and subscribe or whatever it is. But I work with my hands as a builder, as a carpenter, as a artist, and I'm 44 years old. I love what I do. I've crafted the ambience of my life in a way to where I'm blessed enough to be able to have some sense of liberation and not, punch a clock 9 to 5, but I'm still participating in the construct. But at some point, what I would like to do is really devote a lot more time, or at least a balanced amount of time, right? To doing this, the New Earth Architect podcast, or whatever other projects and endeavors that might spurn from this. I've done workshops in the past. I do a lot of one-on-one sessions, whether that's in the healing modalities, right? The sort of guidance, through maybe psychedelics or grounding and breath work, exercise, meditations, things of that nature. Um, it's quite situational, but I've been called to um, expound upon the gnosis that is in me. I know nothing, right? As soon as we make conclusions and think that we know something, we close the door to exploration, don't we? But, within my experience, I am an authority on me and my experience. And I've gone through a number of different things in my life where I've had to overcome uh, those situations. And there's been a lot of support and guidance from other humans as well, um, ancestral lines, uh, spirit lines, and beyond. You know, the cosmos is, you know, we're all woven into the fabric of um, the existence of all things, the connectedness and connection of all things. So know that you can always rely on that. And I'm not a dogmatic person. I'm not a religious person per se, insofar as like organized religion or anything like that. But none of these things are mutually exclusive. We don't know anything. So some people would be talking about today, Lord, this is the book of Revelations. We're sort of seeing the end times, and you know the way that information has been manipulated in the past would have you think that there's fire and brimstone falling from the sky, or judgment through water, or whatever it might be, calamity and all this stuff. Um, and it sort of paints it as sort of magical or mystical or what have you. But um, like I said, these things aren't mutually exclusive. There's a lot of truth in the older ancient texts that were taken to actually create the Bible, right? So we live in the natural cycle of the universe, and what that is showing right now is that once again we've come to a place of unsustainability, and the planet is reflecting that. Um, and what we've built is reflecting and showing that it can no longer sustain in a way to where it's beneficial to the masses, right? So dig deep. Let's do that. So let's end with I hope that wasn't all too disjointed. Sometimes I can be scatterbrained, but I hope that you enjoy just sort of sitting with me for a little bit and putting a couple different things in perspective, adding a little bit of uh, more information to your toolkit insofar as how we can um, navigate through this thing called life together, right? So yeah, so let's just take a couple deep breaths, and then we'll end on that note. Love, light, and blessings, and I definitely appreciate you for sticking in and sharing and commenting and maybe subscribing at some point. Oh, what I was gonna say was that yeah, I would like to transition from the hard physical sort of work that I do. I not fully, but have a balance between that and ultimately, doing more of this. And I think it's important for me and for my authenticity. Um, and I think it's important to share. And as I've learned over, especially the last, 7 years or so, in my third sort of phase of awakening, um, that there's a lot of people that can relate, and it resonates deeply. And we can all really support each other by being authentic in our expression of what we experience sort of beyond just the five senses of smell, taste, touch, hearing, and what's the other one? Sight, right? Visual sight. We're talking about extrasensory things and development of that too. All right. Anyway, but to get to the fundamental core at last, of our existence as it is anyway, right? Our breath is our life force energy. Everything else is the ambiance in which we build out of here. Um, but fundamentally, the moment that you're smacked on the ass when you're born and take that first deep breath to the moment in which you take your last, is the only thing that indicates that you're existing at all. It's your breath. So I would like to say that at 44 years old, right, 24 hours in a day, how many breaths have I taken, right? And how many of those breaths have I actually sat with intentionally and consciously, given attention to, and said, this is what this is doing in my body. This is how this is making me feel. This is, you know, right? Um, it's important to engage that. So let's take a couple deep breaths, if you will, if you like. Okay. We'll start with the exhale out. All right. Thanks for joining me. And until the next podcast, love, light, and blessings. Thanks for joining New Earth Architects. And episode 2 coming up soon. And until then, stay safe, stay positive, keep blessing each other, lead with your heart. And I think the next time I'll have a guest here. So, all right, take care.